This is a little bit of background for Activity 1, a number line from Lesson 1, Number Puzzles, and Unit 4, Linear Equations and Linear Systems. In Activity 1, you are asked what you notice and wonder about this arrow diagram. And in 7th grade, you learned a method or a model of subtraction that was, what is the difference between this 12 and this -4, for example? How far apart are they on a number line? What's the difference between 12 and -4? And you used arrow diagrams like this to solve those kinds of problems. So I'm going to review that briefly here. To understand subtraction as the difference of two numbers on a number line, the authors used the 1st grade standard of understanding unknown add-in or missing add-in problems. So in 1st grade, you learn fact families. So you learn that 8 plus 2 is 10, 2 plus 8 is 10, 10 minus 2 is 8, and 10 minus 8 is 2. And so you ask the question, if 10 minus 8 is 2, then 8 plus what number? So this is the missing add-in, equals 10. And so this is the first add-in in an addition problem. This is the second add-in that's missing. And you want to find out what this number is to equal 10. And so you learned a number of ways to do that. One is the fact family. The second is by counting up. So 8 plus 2 is equal to 10. And so then you learned that 10 minus 8 is equal to 2. And you very quickly check that in your head by counting up or by using the fact family. So 10 minus 8 is 2. And so that's the length of this arrow to go from 8 to 10. So that's the difference between 10 and 8 on a number line, are these two units. In 7th grade, which is Unit 5 in 7th grade in this curriculum, then you extended that idea to the differences being not only the value 2, but what's the direction. So it's a positive 2. So what is the difference between 10 and 8? And you were taught to place a point at 10, so that's the sum. So that's the sum. And so what is the difference between 10 and 8? 10 minus 8 is equal to x. This is the second or missing add-in in the problem. So you're going to move from that 8 to 10. So 10 is the sum, 8 is the first add-in, and you're moving to the right. So you're moving from 8 to 10. That's to the right. So that tells you the sign is positive, and the number of units is the distance between 10 and 8, which is 2 units. So this answer becomes 10 minus 8 is equal to positive 2. So what arrow connects 8 to 10? Tells you the direction, positive, and it tells you the distance, 2 units. So using the 7th grade standard to complete this idea of what is the difference between two values on a number line, how far are they apart? So here is subtraction on a horizontal number line. And the difference between those two values says that you have P and you have Q. So this is now a positive 2 units. So there is a distance, which is 2 units, and there's a direction, moving in the positive direction. And you were taught that the sum is where you place the point. That's where you want to get to. So 10 minus 8, how far apart? What's the difference between 10 and 8 on a number line? Is 2 units, and it's a positive 2 units. So we're going to get to this in just a second. But the distance is the absolute value of positive 2, which is 2. So B up here says you have P and Q. That equals a value. So that equals 10. So 8 is P, 2 is Q. And they're located on a distance, the absolute value of Q. So the absolute value of this positive 2, they are located 2 units apart. And the direction tells you the sign of that number, whether it's a positive or negative integer. So since you're moving in the positive direction to get from 8 to 10, that answer is a positive 2. So 2 units apart, moving to the right from 8 to 10, so that answer is a positive 2. C says that the distance between two numbers on a number line is the absolute value of their difference. Well, if you calculate the difference, how far are they apart? It's a positive 2 units, because once again, they're 2 units apart and you're moving in the positive direction to the right to get from 8 to 10. So that's a positive 2. And the distance that they are apart is the absolute value of their difference. So the difference is positive 2. The absolute value of positive 2 is 2. So that's the distance that they are apart. Now, if I said to you, what's the difference between 8 and 10? They're still 2 units apart. So the distance that they are apart is the absolute value of the difference. But the difference in this case is negative 2, because you're moving 2 units to the left to get from 10 to 8. So that's a negative 2 unit. What's the difference between 8 and 10? Negative 2, because you're moving 2 units from 10 to 8 in the negative direction. What's the difference between 10 and 8? Positive 2, because you're moving from 8 to 10 in the positive direction.
This concept of understanding subtraction as the difference was one of the hardest concepts for me to teach in 7th grade, and I thought one of the hardest concepts for students to learn in 7th grade. So I put together this summary slide that compares what is the difference between 10 and 8 and what is the difference between 8 and 10. And so if you write that out, so 10 minus 8, so what's the difference between 10? That's the ending point, that's the sum. What's the difference between 10 and 8? And 8 is the starting point. And the arrow that connects them is the second addend. Writing this as a missing addend problem, it becomes 10 is equal to 8 plus x. So this is the second addend. It's the second arrow from 8 to 10. So if you go from 8 to 10, that's a positive 2 units. So to answer this question, what value plus 8 equals 10? It's a positive 2. Notice that the distance is the absolute value of a positive 2, which is 2. So this is positive 2, it's 2 units, and it's moving to the right. So it's a positive. But if you switch the order, what is the difference between 8 and 10? So now 8 is the sum, and you're starting at 10 and you're moving to 8. So you're moving in a negative direction. So that answer is going to be negative 2. And the missing addend problem is 8, that sum, is equal to 10 plus what number? And so a little bit more practice, you'll see that x has to be a negative 2. So the second addend is the second arrow in this case, moving from 10 to 8. So the second arrow, the first arrow goes to 10, the second arrow goes from that 10 to 8. So it goes in a negative direction, so the answer is going to be negative, and it's 2 units. So it's a negative 2. What's the difference between 8 and 10 is negative 2. What's the difference between 10 and 8 is positive 2. And notice that the distance is 2 units in both cases. It's the absolute value of a positive 2 is 2, and the absolute value of a negative 2 are those 2 units.